Hi, this is Mari and Jerome, and we're visiting a very special place today.
We're at the Botanical Gardens here at Heathcote, and we're going to check out the bonsai collection. So let's go, let's check it out.
My name is Tom Kehoe. I'm the curator of the bonsai collection here at the James J. Smith Gallery at Heathcote Botanical Garden down in Fort Pierce. I've only been the curator here officially for about 3 months, but I've stepped in to be the curator 2 or 3 times over the years when they've been looking for other curators. I think we've had officially 3 different curators now. And I was involved with all of these trees long before they ever came to Heathcote. This is my favorite tree here in the collection. It's Jim Smith's massive Brazilian rain tree, and it's one of the largest specimens in the U.S. of Brazilian rain tree. And there's a couple of reasons why it's my favorite. For one thing, it's just simply a beautiful tree, and rain tree has such wonderful movement and twisting in the trunk that it's really very distinct. But I'm personally attached to it because this was actually the first tree of Jim's that I worked on. Jim had a massive collection of bonsai that were his personally. I think he had about 150 trees at one point. And he was the only person who ever worked on them. He wouldn't let other folks do it. And as he got older, it was increasingly harder for him to work on the trees because his eyesight was fading. And so I was at his home one day and we were talking about the trees, and we were looking at his rain tree here, and there was just a kind of a long pop in the back, and I said, well, Jim, do you mind if I just snap that off? I thought it was kind of presumptuous to ask, and he said, well, I wish you would. And so I did it, and then he said, now even out that pad over there, and I did that, and he said, now reshape the top here, and that was just kind of the start of it, and taking care of a lot of Jim's trees for him after that point. But this is where it started. And I was actually very honored that he let me do that because, again, this is a particularly rare tree, and one of the largest and most valuable of its kind in the country. In the broadest sense, a curator is responsible for the health of the trees in the exhibit. But we also do education, we do tours, we speak to community groups. So education is a great part of what Heathcote as a whole is about. And so yeah, we have community groups that come here all the time, and we explain the significance of the different trees and where bonsai as an art form comes from, why it's relevant to the U.S. today. So yeah, to be a curator of an exhibit like this, you need to know a fair bit about bonsai in the first place. Because these are tropical trees, you actually have to know something about tropical bonsai, which is very different from the northern bonsai that the Japanese really kind of established the art with. You've got to know the horticultural side of it, and you've got to know the artistic side of it as well. But specifically because this garden is about one man and his trees, you also have to know Jim Smith's artistic style and his vision for the trees. And I'd known Jim for about 15 years, and had studied pretty closely with him for about 10 years. He died about 2 years ago, and prior to that he was in a residential care facility for a couple of years. Prior to that, he had continued his monthly Bonsai Under the Oaks sessions up at his Durstone nursery. And for the last couple of years that he did that, I'd do those seminars with him, and he'd talk about what needed to happen to trees, and I'd trim the trees for him. And so it was very much a kind of a working studentship. Now that's really common in Japan, but it's not terribly common in the United States. People don't have the time to invest in that. And in part for that reason, the trees here haven't always been in the kind of shape we'd really like them to be in. We spent about 3 years getting them ready to bring down to Heathcote. During that time period, they were building the garden here, and we went through probably 50 of Jim's trees, repotting them, restructuring the canopies, trying to help get them healthier again, getting the foliage denser so that they'd be healthier and prettier when they started showing down here in Heathcote. The problem is with a collection this size, just about the time you finish doing that with the last tree, the first one needs it again. So it's kind of an ongoing process to keep all of these trees healthy. This is probably Jim's favorite tree in the collection here. It's the large Portulacaria afra that's the logo tree for the exhibit. This one here is about 4 feet tall. This tree weighs about 180 pounds, so it's a major effort just to move the tree. And the foliage on it is incredibly tight. It looks like something out of a fantasy novel, and the trunk on it is just almost otherworldly. It doesn't feel like you expect a plant this size to feel. It's very smooth and inviting. So this is a somewhat unusual ficus species that was known in the trade as Ficus exotica. That's not a real species name for the tree, it's just what it was called, and no one seems to know what the real name of the species is. But what we do know is that there's not a whole lot of them around anymore. When we repot this tree today, we've got a couple of goals in mind. One is we want to lower this down into the pot a little bit more. As the tree grows, the root mass becomes so dense underneath that it actually pushes the tree up and out of the pot. This is what we call a bag pot, and it has a deep internal lip. So if we don't repot these on a regular basis, the roots can actually grow into that lip, keep the tree from rising out, and literally break the pot apart. Now this is an old pot that Jim had put this in. It's probably been in this particular pot for about 20 years.